Hey guys, it's been a while, and honestly, it's been 6 months since my last comic book movie review. And I know that I kind of put Black Panther Wakanda Forever in the ranking of 2022 comic book movies, but I want to give it more of a proper review because I feel like the movie deserves it. Also, three other comic book movies have came out in 2023 so far, so I kind of want to do mini reviews on these. But if you want to know how I truly feel about these movies, you could find my letterbox, which I'll put in the comment section down below, and even show you my ranking of the 2023 comic book movies that I have so far. But without further ado, it is time to talk about all four of these comic book movies, since we're kind of reviewing what came out from November of 2022 to May of 2023. Knowing that we're getting two comic book movies next year, The Flash and Spider-Man, and I kind of want to have those singular reviews because I feel like a lot is going to happen in those movies for me to do a singular review about them. But let's continue. Let's start off with Black Panther Wakanda Forever. I know I was extremely positive about the movie, and to be honest, that doesn't really change. I really like that the movie pays tribute to Chadwick Boseman, and on top of that is more of a celebration of his character. It's a great way to kind of honor the man that really was the lead of this franchise, and in my opinion, was the forefront of the franchise. And despite all the side characters being great, Black Panther Wakanda Forever kind of shows why T'Challa was actually very integral to the first movie, why it was important for him to kind of be the lead. Because although all the side characters are great and are great enough characters, it just feels like the lead itself is kind of missing. And I understand that Shuri is the lead, and I really do like what they make her character go through, but this is just more of a personal thing. I just don't like her in the role as Black Panther. This has nothing to do with her being a woman or black, because I'm black myself, and I don't really have an issue with Shuri as a character. I like her character in this movie, but I just personally don't feel like she fits Black Panther like that much. And anyways, they already introduced T'Challa Jr., who's obviously gonna continue the mantle, but it almost feels like they kind of should have recasted if they were already gonna have a T'Challa kind of continue the Black Panther legacy, and it feels more convoluted to have a T'Challa Jr. than it does to just have somebody take the role of T'Challa. But outside of that, Namor is a fantastic villain. You understand his motives pretty clearly, and he could be menacing but also kind of likable. Also, the way he got his name was extremely badass. I know a lot of people have kind of changed their opinions on Black Panther, or well, at least this one, they kind of turned on it a little bit in the upcoming months, but I have not turned on it. I still really like it. In fact, it's in my top 10 MCU movies because I love the Black Panther franchise, but I would be lying if I said this movie was better than the first one. I still enjoy the first one a whole lot more. I feel like the first one was way more cohesive and a little better. I do think Wakanda Forever is a little bit all over the place, and I'm gonna be honest, it did not need to be as long as it needed to, because that's a current trend you'll see with a lot of these comic book movies as of late. They're either very, very long or they're just extremely short. There's just not the in between anymore, which is kind of weird, to be honest. But overall, I'll still give Black Panther Wakanda Forever an 8 out of 10. I still really like the movie. Alright, coming up is Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. Now, if you're new here and you don't really understand my relationship with the Ant-Man franchise, you must know I don't like the Ant-Man movies. I don't even really like Ant-Man that much. I mean, Paul Rudd is cool. I like Paul Rudd. And, Scott Lang has a character in the first movie. He was cool, but I feel like Ant-Man is one of the most characters that is stuck in terms of, like, his character. Like, his character is just stuck in this place of, like, no development. Because I feel like Scott has been the same character. And look, that would be fine in Avengers movies, since he's more like the comedic relief and you kind of need that type of character. But for his own standalone hero slash franchise, out of all the heroes in the MCU, I feel like Scott has developed the least. And Quantumania doesn't really fix that because a lot of Scott's development comes from him loving his daughter, and that's fine. But like we did this for 3 movies, and it barely even worked in the second one, and the third one actually kind of makes it a little bit more interesting, having Cassie, be a little bit more grown up in this one, and having her and Scott's ideologies kind of be a little bit different. But the movie doesn't even really spend time on that, like at all. So it's really just more of a throwaway thing that happens. Remember Evangeline Lilly? Remember that she's actually in these movies? Remember when Hope was actually an interesting character in the first Ant-Man movie? Now, I know I'm really praising the first Ant-Man movie, but to be honest, I feel like it is an average MCU movie. It's very average. It's honestly, if you were to tell me bring an average Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, I would just put Ant-Man because it follows the beats of an MCU movie, but it does have its own distinct flair. And by that, I mean whatever Edgar Wright had left over. But Peyton Reed, I just don't really care for his directing choices or lack thereof because these Ant-Man movies are so safe. Ant-Man and the Wasp was my least favorite MCU movie, but I'm gonna be honest, Quantumania kind of took the cake for me for being my least favorite MCU movie ever. Like, I gave it 2 watches, so I wouldn't be biased on the first watch. And on my second watch, I hated this movie way more than I did with this one. And honestly, I might in the future plan on doing an extensive breakdown on why I don't like Quantumania because it's a really bad movie. And I think it is one of the worst, if not the worst, MCU movies ever. But to summarize my main points as to why I strongly dislike Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, this is the problem that a lot of people have had, that Marvel values setup. Marvel used to be good back in the day with making a great standalone movie while also kind of slowly setting up what was happening in the background. But Quantumania feels like it is forcing you with all this Kang knowledge, and I'm gonna be honest, I just don't really care that much, especially since you're not really making us care about Kang as a character. He's just very mysterious with how he talks, and honestly, Jonathan Majors does a good job as Kang, but he can't carry this movie on his lonesome because let me tell you, this movie was extremely weak. It's just not really great dialogue, and there's just a lot. Plus, the CGI was not that great in the movie. And let's not even talk about MODOK because I hated his character. I'm not gonna lie. Also, Cassie kind of sucked. I don't know. I just wasn't the biggest fan of this movie. But at the same time, I'm not surprised because I did not like any of the Ant-Man movies that much, to be honest. So I'm not surprised that I did not like the third Ant-Man movie, but in all honesty, this is a trilogy ender. This is like the third movie, and yet I feel Scott has not changed since the first Ant-Man movie. The only significant change is that he is kind of more of a hero, I guess, than he was in the first movie, but like, I don't know. I don't know if Scott really has changed. He just felt like the same character. And if you're watching these 3 Ant-Man movies and you're having Scott be the same character with no progression, why the hell do I care about him? Let alone Evangeline Lilly's character, Hope Van Dyne, who gets worse in each movie. Like, I swear, her character just fucking digresses. That's not even a word. But she just regresses as a character from being this actual person that has an opinion on Scott and all this stuff to just Ant-Man's girlfriend. That's it. That's really all she is in this movie. In fact, she's barely in this movie because half the time she has to beg her mom, what is happening in the quantum realm? Why are you keeping secrets? And that didn't even last that long. There was really not a lot of tension with that. Quantumania just had so much, and honestly, I would make a breakdown rant video about why I really strongly dislike Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. But there's just so many videos out there already doing it. I would feel kind of repetitive, and I don't want to talk about this movie anymore unless we're talking about MCU rankings, or we have to if we're talking about what's happening with Kang the Conqueror. But truly, I think Quantumania is one of the worst MCU movies. So I'll give it a 3 out of 10. It was very bad. Very, very bad. It fucking sucked, to be honest. Which leads us into Shazam Fury of the Gods. Oh my god, a DC movie. You probably didn't even think we would have a DC movie here. But not DC released a movie in March. And if you are surprised that this movie's on this list, I wouldn't blame you, since literally nobody went to watch Shazam Fury of the Gods, as it is the lowest grossing DC movie. But I love the first Shazam movie. The first Shazam movie is top tier DCEU for me, and I feel like the first Shazam is just fun. It's just a certain fun and nice energy you have to the first movie, and I really like all the characters in the first Shazam movie. I mean, sure, Billy can be an extreme dick sometimes, but hey, his heart is in the right place. And at the end, I really just enjoy what the overall themes were. So you would believe that I would love Shazam Fury of the Gods. It's more of the same, right? No, it is not. Shazam Fury of the Gods saw all the problems with the first Shazam movie and doubled it down. You wanted more mind-numbing CGI action? Well, here you go. You wanted more of Billy Batson? Haha, you're not going to get more of Billy Batson. You're going to get him more in his Shazam 4, where he acts more like a child when he's an adult than he does when he's an actual teenager, which is weird. There's just no mental growth with him. They don't even have it that he just doesn't have the wisdom of Solomon either. Like, that could have been an easy cop out, but nah, it's just he's stupid because he's kid. Even though Billy is almost about to be 18 at this point, you would think Shazam would have a little bit of more, what's the word, maturity to his character, especially since he's been a superhero for like 2 years. There feels like there's no consequences to this movie either. Like, yeah, sure, Billy almost dies, but he just kind of comes back because freaking Wonder Woman comes out of nowhere to resurrect him in a cameo of the dying DCEU, which we're definitely going to have a video on, because Marvel and DC's current state are very interesting to kind of talk about, which kind of shows why the comic book movie genre right now is a little bit kind of, I hate using this word, mid, with the exception of a couple of movies being really good, but Shazam Fear of the Gods is just not one of them. Unlike Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, where I had a lot to say about that movie, and still do have a lot to say about that movie, because there's a lot of wrong with Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, there's really nothing I have to say about Shazam Fury of the Gods. For me, it is literally the definition of an average comic book movie that has none of the uniqueness of the first Shazam movie. Hell, Zachary Levi kind of gets on my nerves, has this more grown-up Shazam Billy, and we have to go through him the entire movie. We have to go with him the entire movie, and also Freddy's character teams up with the Wizard, because they basically are repeating what the first Shazam movie kind of did, with having, adult Billy and kid Freddy being in the movie and being the main stars of the movie, because that's what everybody liked about the first one, without missing the fact that the heart of the first one was there. And I'm not going to blame David F. Sandberg, because he has truly been emotionally hurt about the movie, and honestly, Warner Brothers did this movie so dirty with the release date and the marketing, which there wasn't really any, which is why I'm not surprised that a lot of people did not really watch Shazam Fury of the Gods, because it's just not that good. And hey, there are some people that really enjoy this movie, and I'm not trying to crap in your cereal, I guess, if you really do enjoy this movie, but it's just average. It's not even awful or anything. It's not really even that good. It's just an average comic book movie. And I feel like that makes it even worse, because DC movies, whether they're good or bad, at least they're like extremely awful that you could kind of talk about, or they're like really phenomenal movies that you could just talk about for days. But I don't really feel like that for Shazam Fury of the Gods. I kind of want my 2 hours back, actually, because this movie kind of was just average. And seeing the post-credit scenes and knowing that they're absolutely not even going to go anywhere in this franchise, and that, honestly, they're just filler post-credit scenes. I'm going to be real, I don't even know why I stood at the end for the end credit scenes, because they're just not really even that important anymore. And even if we didn't have a reboot coming up, the whole idea was stupid anyways, knowing that The Rock didn't even want to fight Shazam, his arch nemesis. That's kind of what I feel like is the problem with this movie. The villains are weak and they lead into the wrong aspects of Shazam because this is more Wonder Woman's territory while Shazam deals with more of the goofier villains. But I guess that wouldn't work in a big blockbuster movie, so we gotta do the safe Greek villains because, we just cannot have freaking Tony the Tiger show up. Is that his name? I think it's Tony the Tiger, right? I could be wrong. But we can have any of the goofy stuff from the actual Shazam, Captain Marvel comics because that's gonna scare off audiences. I still can't believe Warner Brothers in DC still has this mentality in 2023. For fuck's sakes, the next movie we're gonna talk about in the one of the biggest comic book movie franchises has a talking tree and a talking raccoon. I don't think people really care anymore how weird these movies get, as long as it's done well. And I don't even think Shazam: Fury of the Gods would have even nailed that. So overall, 5 out of 10. Very mid. I don't really like this sequel. Just watch the first Shazam and just pretend this movie doesn't exist. Like, at all. But instead of a sequel that wasn't wanted and a third movie that absolutely sucked, let's get into let's not focus on that. Let's focus on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, the most recent movie on this list. And I am going to make this extremely quick since the movie is still kind of out. And I don't want to go into spoilers about what's going on with this movie, but this movie is phenomenal. It is probably my favorite comic book movie out of the four, to be honest. And I'm gonna be real. This is my favorite comic book movie since the Batman. Like, honest to God, this is my favorite comic book movie since the Batman. And on top of that, and I know this is extreme high praise, this is my favorite MCU movie. Like, I've watched this twice in the theater. And I don't do that usually. Like, I know it's very popular for people to watch movies 2 times in the theater. I don't actually do that often. I might watch it once and then I would wait for it on digital to rewatch it if I really like it. But there are certain movies that I have watched twice in the theater. Shang-Chi, Batman, and now Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and technically Spider-Man No Way Home. But that was more like the re-release they did. But anyways, Guardians 3, I've seen it twice in the theater within the 4 weeks it came out. That's a brand new record. I didn't even do that for Batman. I waited a whole other month just to watch Batman. And then I watched Sonic after. But that's not the point. The point is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is great. It's a beautiful ending to these characters. And honestly, this really shows that Guardians is one of the strongest trilogies. I mean, in my opinion, it's my favorite trilogy. But Captain America's trilogy does kind of rival Guardians of the Galaxy a little bit. Even though I think Guardians of the Galaxy has 3 strong movies. Some people say the second one's weak. I honestly really love the second one, and I'm not surprised that, again, Guardians 3 is my favorite MCU movie, because if Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania did everything that I don't like in an Ant-Man movie, Guardians did everything that I like in a Guardians movie, on top of focusing a lot more on Rocket Raccoon, who is easily my favorite Guardian out of everybody else. So I'm not surprised that I absolutely really enjoyed this movie because of that aspect, that we focused on Rocket's origin. And as I said, this kind of gives the perfect ending to every character, making everything full circle. When I first watched Guardians 3, I actually did not watch the first 2 movies prior because I do that on the regular anyways, so I have a pretty good memory about the first 2 movies. But after I watched 3, I decided to rewatch the first 2 movies, and on top of that, rewatch 3. And honestly, this is the perfect trilogy to watch back to back. You notice a lot of small details, and honestly, you can tell that the story is done thoroughly, that each movie is so important. But at the same time, Guardians 3 works as a very good standalone film. So even if you have not seen the other Guardians movies, which I find that hard to do, that you were like, I'm not going to watch the first 2. I'm going to just skip to the third one. That's a little weird, but we do know that there's a little bit of those weird people out there. It still can work as a great standalone movie with the Guardians and giving them a beautiful ending. But overall, as a true trilogy capper, this is what you do. This is how you do a trilogy capper. You give us a proper third movie that wraps up all the arcs and the characters while still leaving something open if there is an opportunity to do a future story. And I'll be honest, I know there's a lot of talk of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 4, and there is an obvious thing that I'm not going to spoil that is in the post-credit scenes. There's a little tease of a certain character that's gonna come back. But I kind of do not want them to do Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 4. I think the three movies are good enough as it is because it's that great of a trilogy, and I wouldn't change it for the world, to be honest, because I really would not want a fourth one that kind of ruins the first three movies. Just know when you had it good and just hightail it out of there. That's one of Hollywood's problems, is that they don't know when to end it good. That's also the problem with the Fast and Furious franchise, but that's a completely different conversation now at this point, which I also have seen that movie. So maybe you might get a Fast and Furious video. I mean, you're probably not going to, but I did see the movie, so you can have that information. But anyways, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 gets a 9 out of 10. And this kind of concludes my little comic book movie catch-up. You get to know how I feel about all the recent comic book movies that come out. And I guess I am going to rank my anticipation for the rest of the 2023 comic book movies a little bit later. So, there's that. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.